Hey, this is Meleika of Evanston Live TV, and I have with me today President of District 65, Miss Anya Tanyavutti. Welcome, Anya. Well, welcome back. You've been on Evanston Live TV. I've lost count.
It's been a few times, but it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Anya. And I believe every time that I have you on, you bring something new. You always bring some good news about what's happening with D65. I mean, you guys have seen your share of, drama, which I don't think anyone even understood why you all were receiving the death threats and the horrible things when you were one trying to protect our children from a virus, and wanting to pour into the children, and you had pushback. But what I've noticed is you would always come on and report some really great things that D65 was doing. And I don't think people hear enough of that. And today's news is like a big one. It's a big one. When you called me and said you got to be there on the 14th, I was like, what's going on? And you broke it down. I was like, it's a reality. It's real. This ain't just like talk. This is real. This is real. Anya, girl, you got to tell us. You got to walk us through how all this happened. The new Fifth Ward
So I,
School.
yeah, so I will start off with what I think is my personal philosophy, but has also been the philosophy that our community has been moving with for really the last 53, maybe actually closer to 55 years. Um, and that is the African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And for me, as I had mentioned in my board comments on the 14th, um, the reality of the impact of busing children away from their homes to desegregate schools is a lived experience that I've had, not necessarily here in Evanston, but where I went to school when I was a child. And I understand that experience personally. It's actually been my experience for my entire educational career, having to ride the bus in order to desegregate schools. And the emotional impact and the social impact is really immeasurable. And I think Marquise Weatherspoon spoke to it very well with her comments on the 14th as well. These are not memories or experiences or impacts that go away. We carry them with us. And um, so when I came to the board and I understood that this historical harm and trauma had occurred, I also understood that if we work together, community, institution, staff, um, governance body, that we can make a tremendous impact and we can utilize our social capital, our political capital, our economic capital to do what is right for children and families. And that would involve correcting historical wrongs where possible. I also understood that if we were to do that in a way that folks deserve, that we need to do it in a way that's sustainable and thoughtful, which meant that we needed a lot of time to be methodical about this. So it's been 5 years since I've come to the board with the understanding of the harm that's happened in our community and with a commitment to using the wisdom, knowledge, and relationships that I have to correct that wrong. And it's been a long and methodical process of thinking about, well, how do we do this in a way that is sustainable, that is loving and caring, and that in no way replicates the harm that happened to our community in 1967. And so with all of that work, we were able to culminate that focus on March 14th, 2022. And we were able to pass the board passed a resolution 7-0 to adopt the SAP scenario that was presented to us, which involved building a school in the 5th Ward. What's really beautiful about that scenario is it's designed to bring walkable schools to all of our neighborhoods. And our community has communicated in multiple ways why walkable schools are important to them, because it's important to children to feel proximate to the educators and friends that they are in school with. It's important for families to build community with one another and be able to have conversations on the playground before and after school. It's important in order to access enrichment opportunities for our children. And so, what was presented to us was a repair, certainly for what happened 55 years ago in the 5th Ward, but also a harm that has continued to happen since, by not allowing folks the beauty of having a school that is a hub of community activity. So in addition to that, this is just phase 1 that we voted on. Phase 2 of the SAP committee's work is going to be making sure not only that we have walkable schools, which was phase 1, but 2, that we have all of the programs in each school that are most necessary and relevant to the population that's walking to them. So everyone will have a walkable school, and they will have a walkable school with the programs that they need, rather than having to be bussed around town in order to get programs for different disabilities or programs for different language needs. All of those programs it's going to be designed so that they are in the buildings that are walkable to the residents that need them. We will be eliminating a huge burden of environmental racism in the levels of busing and diesel emissions that have been burdened on the 5th Ward for the last 53 years as well. And so we are so excited to be making a move towards more sustainable operations and environmental impact as a district. There are many things that we were able to correct with that 7-0 vote on the 14th for the resolution to adopt the SAP scenario for a new 5th Ward school. And this is a image that they made for us to give us an example.
Beautiful,
And
absolutely beautiful.
It'll be in the current Foster Field, which District 65 does own, and it will be a full state-of-the-art school, and also a comprehensive hub of community resources with a connection to Family Focus, as well as a connection to Fleetwood Jourdain. So it will truly be a hub of the community with all of the care, social connections, and culturally relevant opportunities that we deserve. And it's very exciting.
Now, girl, I don't even have children, and I am just so excited. You have brought up, repairing the harm. To me, this is true reparations. This is an example of what true reparations really is, because it's repairing a harm that was done years ago that is still impacting the community. And when this school is built, it's a gift that's going to keep giving. It's going to keep giving to the generations to come, and it's powerful. That is absolutely powerful. So thank you all so much.
I'm so excited. I'm greatly appreciative of all of the ancestors, all of the peers that continue to work on this work, shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and all of the descendants that inspire us and that will be proud and happy and well informed, and will do great things with the investment that we're making in them. I'm so grateful and overwhelmed. I'm not a very outwardly emotional person, but internally I'm really touched and overwhelmed and just so proud and grateful that I could be a vessel as a leader to make this happen, because this is what we deserve.
Yes, I had texted you that night on the 14th, a- and I was like, this is awesome. I loved how you all were paying homage to all those before you who had really tried to, make this happen, to repair this harm. And they were met with such opposition, so many challenges. And I had texted you, I was like, girl, you grabbed that baton and did it. I mean, it was just so moving and so emotional. Um, all the speeches from everyone on the school board, everyone gave respect to those before who had tried so hard. So, um, when they say, I hear some young people say, well, the older generations, they failed us. And that really hurts. That really hurts when I hear young people say that, because you have no idea what those before you went through for you to be able to just do what you're doing right now. So it's powerful when the next generation grabs that baton and keeps it going, keeps the vision alive and going. So, I see the vision behind you right there of the Fifth Ward School, and it's beautiful, Anya. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I was, you know, determined to have at least one of the images. It was really lovely when we walked into the boardroom. The folks the third party vendor who did our master's facility plan, they did a deep demography study of current demographics and outward looking demographics. And they also did an architectural assessment of all of our assets. And they also collected a lot of information about what we hope and dream of for our entire district, including a Fifth Ward school. And based on all of that information that they collected, they drafted these images for us. And so when we walked into the boardroom, we had the, incredible experience of walking into a boardroom that was reflective of so many folks who have worked over the years, who were excited and energized, and happy to finally be seen and heard in a way that was respectful and holistic. And that felt really lovely to walk into our community that way.
Mhm.
But then also there were about 8 images of what the Fifth Ward School could look like. And all of them were beautiful and exciting conversation starters. And I wanted to ensure that I had at least one, and someone said I should take the one that says whatever it takes. So that's the one that I grabbed.
Whatever it takes, absolutely, by any means necessary, whatever it takes. And you all were met with, like, you all had paid homage to those before who were faced with people who absolutely did not want a Fifth Ward school, because they quote unquote love their diversity. For the life of me, I'm really, really. So, what sort of challenges did you all meet when you took that baton and you were like, we're going to make this happen? We're going to make this happen. What were you met with?
Well, let me also be clear that I am not the only person who said we're going to make this happen. So several of my board colleagues have run several campaigns and have been asked about what their stance is on a Fifth Ward school, and have publicly shared how they feel about not only the fact that the Fifth Ward school was taken, but the long term impact and harm that that had on the community, and that that had on children and families, especially those in the Fifth Ward. Also, folks who had opinions, you know, excuse me, who shared their opinions and their reflections and their analysis on the 2012 referendum. And so there are many people who came into their position shoulder to shoulder with me, committed to acknowledging the harm that had happened and thinking creatively about how we prioritize repair. But, you know, the first conversation early on in my tenure on the District 65 board, I mean, many of them were very dismissive. I was constantly, as I said, that I believe that we could close the gap in opportunity to achieve, because I know that our children can achieve, and it's not a question of whether or not they can do it. The question is if our system is oriented towards giving everybody, including our Black and Brown children, what they need in order to show up and show out. And they can, and we know that now because we have oriented our faith and our resources into high standards for every child. We believe in all of our children. And, you know, when I first came to the board and I talked about closing that gap in opportunity to achieve, and I talked about why there isn't a Fifth Ward school, I was often met with, I'm thinking of, the word is escaping me. I guess like a disbelief, almost as if I was delusional, that I was dreaming too big, and that I was dreaming impossible dreams. And, you know, I think that we come from ancestors that did a lot of impossible dreaming. You know, our ancestors dreamed of being free. And that is one of the gifts that they passed down to us, is to have a vision, and to be able to pursue that vision with a certain amount of fearlessness, a necessary fearlessness in order to dream of our liberation and embody it. And that was something that, you know, needed to be carried through in this process. But I was certainly met with a lot of just lack of faith. Folks telling me, oh yeah, I believe in a Fifth Ward school as well, but it's just not something that we can do. It's just not something that can be done. And so what that did for me was lay a blueprint. So what is it that is the barrier? Explain to me, what is it that makes it feel like it can't be done? Our fiscal state. Okay, well, we need to make sure that our fiscal state is in a place where it is sustainable so that everybody can get the care that they need. So we need to be very disciplined and deliberate about how we manage our finances and how we imagine a financial solution for this particular challenge in order to address it. One of the other elements that I knew about about District 65 early on was that we were not achieving racial equity in large part because we were not consulting in a loving and respectful and dignified way with all of our stakeholders. We were not engaging the wisdom and the creativity and imagination of our stakeholders. And if anyone in the Black and Brown community knows something about Black and Brown parents, what we know is that we care about our kids, and we care about our kids' futures. And we do have a vision for them, and we do have an imagination about how to get them where they deserve to go. And if we're not listened to, then you're missing out on a huge gift. But it's sitting right here, the resource is sitting right here waiting to be tapped. And so, you know, one of the things we knew we had to do, I knew that we needed to do as a district that would enrich us and help our kids to have, all of our kids have a more full, beautiful, and expansive experience, was to have more caregiver and stakeholder voice engaged in conversation, including, you know, the community members who live in our community who once had children in District 65 and don't no longer, or folks who will never and have never had children in District 65, but who are engaged in our community. All of those voices are really important for how we conceive of our schools, because schools are a common good and it belongs to everybody. And so, you know, when it came time to hire Dr. Horton, when we had when we did his leadership profile for that hiring process, it was a really important time for us to identify what are the characteristics that we need in a leader in order to conceive of solutions for this gap in opportunity to achieve and this historical harm that is sitting on the shoulders of children. How do we find a leader that is acclimated to addressing all of those needs, as well as the fiscal management of the district and all of the standard superintendent responsibilities that were a priority to us. And
Dr.
we
Horton was
had
it. Dr. Horton, you all
we
picked the right one.
we had over 2,000 respondents to those surveys. We applied the racial equity impact assessment tool to that data, and we elevated the voices of the most marginalized, and we were able to customize a leadership profile that captured the racial equity values and priorities in our community. And Dr. Horton fit all of those elements of the leadership profile. And so a standard part of a superintendent interview is to have a day in the district where they come and meet folks and, get to see the town and get to sit with the board leadership for a little bit. And we had a delicious lunch at Ovo Frito, and we had the opportunity to sit and talk with Dr. Horton. And he was like, "This is great. Everyone I met is wonderful. I love it here." And I was like, "I'm really glad to hear that. It is great. And also, there are some really big lists that we have." And I was like, this historical wrong happened a long time ago. It has not yet been repaired, and we are not in the fiscal state to solve that problem immediately. That would be a major priority for your role, and I want you to know that coming in. And he was like, not afraid. he was like, okay, that sounds like something I'd like to tackle. And so in short order, once he was hired, he started mid-pandemic, and he had spent 6 months of time prior to his first day with us getting to know our district, unpaid, getting to know our district and preparing the groundwork for his leadership. And so in that time frame, he had assessed what would we need in terms of staffing in order to support the board priority of finding a way to redistrict in a way that is more kind to the humanity of all of our children and families, including our Fifth Ward children and families. And he proposed that staffing update to us. And at the time, we supported that. And shortly after, he proposed hiring Sarita Smith into the student assignment planning, I think student assignment planning manager. I think it was the job at the time. It's since been elevated up to a director position. And so Sarita Smith started, and that was in the summer of 2020. In the winter of 2021, Sarita presented to us a recommendation for pulling together a student assignment committee and having that committee advise her in how to present a scenario. And they worked diligently from the spring of 2021 into the spring of 2022. Here we are now to bring us the scenarios that they brought us. And we had board representation. I was rotating in and out with Sergio and Marquise for a time, and I was happy to cede my seat to Sergio and Marquise so that they could be the two consistent board representatives, and we weren't popcorning in and out of the process. And they've been, really impactful participants and contributors to that process. And we were able to.
God really works in mysterious ways. He put all the right players in place, because I remember the forums and interviewing all the different candidates who were going to be on, who were running to be on the board of D65. And, and you had some candidates who didn't think a Fifth Ward school, like you had said, was going to be anytime soon. I believe one of them had said, well, yeah, that's, in the future. Yeah. As if it wasn't possible. So, I truly believe in the higher power and God's. He put the right people on that board. He put all the players in place. You all got Dr. Horton, who was determined to put a Fifth Ward school in during his time. It was definitely a vision of yours. And everyone on the board that is seated right now, all of them saw it as a possibility to happen now. So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to also note that we were really respectful of the process. I think many of us had an opinion, but we also respected that we had a SAP committee and wanted to see what the voice of the SAP committee was as well. And the SAP committee consists of 40 folks from all the different wards and segments of Skokie that are relevant and feeding into our district, different racial, economic backgrounds, et cetera. And early on, the SAP committee determined that they felt like neighborhood schools were important and that a Fifth Ward school would be important. And those were priorities that the SAP determined very early on. And in July of 2021 is when we heard about the lease certificate, which was the financial tool that makes possible being able to build a Fifth Ward school without putting the district in further financial challenges. Because when I came to the board, I inherited, along with my 6 colleagues, we inherited a school district that required some savvy fiscal governance and careful fiscal governance. And that's what Dr. Horton has inherited as well. And we've made millions of dollars of cuts in order to get closer to ridding ourselves of the structural deficit that we have, and to get closer to being able to use our debt service, which we had reached our debt service limit, which is like a credit card limit, several years back. And so we haven't been able to take any other bonds out for a very long time. And with some savvy fiscal management, we have been able to sustain ourselves and get closer to resolving the structural deficit. But this lease certificate is a tool that several districts in our area have used to build buildings. And it is essentially getting a mortgage on anticipated cuts. So we are anticipating that we'll be cutting our transportation budget by having folks be able to walk to a Fifth Ward school. And so based on the anticipated transportation cuts and savings that we will have, that translates into a mortgage for 20 years. And in reality, it's actually going to save us money because our transportation costs have been increasing exponentially year after year. And we won't have to worry about that exponential increase because the lease certificate mortgage on that savings is going to be a fixed rate. And so it will be increasing at a nominal and fixed percentage as opposed to the exponential increase in percentage that we have been paying in transportation. And so we got that in July of 2021, and we were able to vote on that on the 14th as well. And so those voting on the resolution and the lease certificate were kind of the totality of making this a reality for us.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes, yes. And you all had received so much criticism, especially during the pandemic. And I just want to say, I mean, at this point, this is like a badass school board because you all survived a pandemic, no blueprint as to how to even navigate or deal with this deadly virus that still exists today. And I mean, and you all had some parents who were like, no, I want my kid to go to school. I don't care about a virus. They need to be in the school. But you all cared so much. And in the midst of all of that, you did not want to lose not one child. So you were protecting the children while at the same time trying to keep this vision alive and make it a reality for a new school. I mean, that is, you all are an amazing school board. Dr. Horton is an awesome superintendent. So I have, it just baffles me that any parents that you all will receive any criticism, because you were faced with repairing a harm from years ago. So that was ahead of you and something that was weighing on all of you. And then a pandemic, and then so many other things going on with the school district. So I applaud you. If you all don't get enough, I applaud you all for all of your work, um, taking the blows and the hits, and you all just kept going. You kept going. You kept going. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, in addition to our keeping our eye on the prize in terms of righting this historical wrong, which I think is repair for all of our children. I think it is harmful, to the children who are bused away from their home and implied that somehow good education is not synonymous with their neighborhood. It is also harmful to all of the children who are watching that happen, who may not necessarily be being bused, but who are seeing their peers being bused and seeing their peers have a subjugated experience. And normalizing that is also really harmful. And so we are, investing in the collective humanity of our entire community by saying when we see something, we're going to say something. And if we see something that needs to be repaired, we're going to heal that. And we're going to heal that through the collective investment in good and compassion in all of us, because this, our SAP committee represented a huge swath of our community. And so, there are times where we can see the bad and the ugly and the power hungry and the infuriating elements of our community. But we can also create moments where we can see the good. And I think this is a moment where we can really see the good and the power in our collective community and our collective vision. I think that, when we have the proper leadership and the proper systems in place, we can cultivate our best selves. And I think this is a representation of that. And I hope it's a beacon of love for everyone. But yeah, we have been through a lot. We experienced a lot of pushback. A lot of false information being spread, hysteria, and having to provide information to folks based on false information to spend energy and capital on correcting, the spreading of lies and hysteria is not fun. But unfortunately, it is something that we have done before and that we are capable of doing as a board, as a collective, as an institution. I do think that it's really important for our community to get used to asking questions of folks and institutions that do spread misinformation. Why? Why do you want to spread misinformation? Why do you want to create fear among us? Why do you want to create division among us? How does that serve you? I think it is really important for folks to ask those questions. But while we are still getting accustomed to figuring out whom we need to ask those questions to, we as an institution are prepared to, provide accurate and updated information to folks as much as possible when they do inquire. Even when folks' approach is condescending and disrespectful and violent and hurtful, we try to make sure that we get the correct information to everyone in the way that they deserve.
I'm always
And we
pushing for
have
people to
been,
ask questions. I'm always pushing the community, please engage. stay engaged, ask questions. One of the things I love about doing Evanston Live TV is, asking the questions for those who are afraid to ask the questions. Like, well, send the questions to me, I'll ask. You won't get an answer if you don't ask. You have to ask the tough questions. And we have other media outlets here in town, and I would say a few of them are very pro city, you know, so whatever the city says, they support it, back it, but no one questions or challenges or ask any real questions. Um, so I love that you all aren't afraid of the questions. Like, bring the questions. Ask, you encourage everyone to ask questions so that they get the right information.
Yes, and I assure you that we ask a lot of questions.
Mhm.
I've heard repeatedly folks who seek to undermine this board as well as doing governance through a racial equity lens imply that somehow we are a rubber stamp or somehow that we lack diversity of thought. And that is just simply untrue.
Actions speak louder
We
than words. Actions speak louder than words. I would love to hear them say that now. Say it now.
Well, every single statement that was made at the meeting was different, right? It had a
Mhm.
different perspective, it had different energy because we are 7 different people with 7 different experiences and expertise, and we bring them to the fore fully for all of our discussions, whether they are internal or external. We do not always agree. We do not always have the same perspective. We don't always have the same questions. But the commitment to inclusivity means that everyone's questions do deserve attention, and everyone's ideas do deserve consideration. And that is how we have operated as a board. And so I think what folks maybe, when they say that we're a rubber stamp board, what they're seeing is that they have been unaccustomed to boards that work together in dignified ways,
Mm.
that work together in collaborative ways, that respect one another, and that who have a shared focus on the humanity of folks who have not historically been centered or prioritized. And I think that's what they're noting. But we certainly ask a lot of questions, and that's oftentimes why what does come to the community looks good. It looks good because we have put it through the ringer. If we have questions, we ask them.
Mhm.
We meet not collectively because that would be a violation of OMA, but we meet individually one-on-one with Dr. Horton. He has a very good assessment and good pulse on our board. He's a very experienced and robust leader. He has a good pulse on his team, and he has a good handle on the concepts and the ideas and the priorities and the proposals. And so what folks are seeing is care. And I think that is what our community deserves, is that if we bring something to a public conversation, it's been well thought out, it's been well vetted, and it is prepared for public consumption. Because that lets folks know that we are taking good care of them and thoughtful care of them. And everyone deserves that. And I think, there are some folks who maybe just don't believe that that caliber of professionalism and leadership can exist in Black people. And I
Mm.
think, it's really, especially in Black
Wow.
women. And I think it's really important to just let them know it does.
Yes, it does.
And we're happy to show you how that looks.
And you're
And I think
showing
that we
them.
have done that.
You're showing them. I love that you all, the board, Dr. Horton, you all didn't get involved in any back and forth, with these people. You just showed them. You just kept doing the work, and you showed them. So, I mean, I would love to hear what they're going to come with next, because this is a true school board and an amazing superintendent, and you all
And can I
did it.
sing a couple of other praises from District 65?
Okay.
So one, our early childhood outcomes, 2 years in a row now, are not predictable along the lines of race, which means that our JEH Early Childhood Center is preparing children to be kindergarten ready, of all backgrounds. And the JEH Child Care Center is primarily Black and Brown and children with disabilities. So those children are prepared, going into kindergarten prepared at nearly equivalent rates to those of their peers who have gone to private preschool. They're coming in strong, and when children start kindergarten with those pre-literacy and numeracy skills, it is, research has shown that the academic achievement gap, it is eliminated that way. And so in many ways, having 2 years of early childhood students entering into kindergarten ready, is a predictor of eliminating the gap in opportunity to achieve in District 65. And so we are looking forward to keeping an eye on those children. But we are so over the moon excited about, for them and their families, that they can have a really hopeful and excited experience as they enter into kindergarten. They can be hopeful that they will leave in 8th grade completely ready for high school, and that they will leave high school ready to take on whatever that is next for them to be career ready. We're so happy for them and those outcomes. Our academic skill centers, we're going to be getting a report in April. They are producing accelerated learning for our children who are not on grade level. And so if they're performing between the 25th and the 50th percentile, they have the opportunity to take advantage of the academic skill center for a trimester. And what we're seeing is that the children who take advantage of the academic skill center are moving to grade level. And so we are accelerating, we have a tool and a system that is accelerating learning. And so that feeling of hopelessness of like, oh, well, my baby wasn't kindergarten ready, and now ever since I've been fighting, trying to figure out to get resources, we have a resource. We have a resource, it is accessible, and it is moving learning. And those children are building their confidence and their capacity, and they're on grade level after they've used the Academic Skills Tutoring Center. And so that, along with the other interventions that have been put in place, are doing an amazing job. Our educators are doing everything that they need to in order to make sure that their Tier 1 instruction is hitting students, and they're doing lots of collaborative learning with one another, and sharing their wisdom and their successes with one another, so that we can make sure that every child's getting the rigor that they need to be at grade level. And so all of those things are really exciting. We have the most diverse school leadership demographic that we've ever had in years. I think 60% of our school leaders are currently, 60% of our school leaders are Black and Brown. And we also have the CREATE program that is preparing educators to train in our schools and become District 65 educators. And we have hope of we also have an Aspiring Leaders program that is preparing leaders to be leaders in our schools as well. And so we have a whole pipeline and ecosystem of support for our kids getting high quality, rigorous, racial equity oriented education. So I just wanted to share some of those numbers with you.
Yes, that is all great news. And I don't think people hear enough about what D65 is doing. So, the new Fifth Ward school, it woke a lot of people up. So I'm glad you listed out, hey, we've done even more for the development of the next generations to come. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anya, to D65, Dr. Horton, and all those before who put in blood, sweat, and tears for this vision, and it's coming to light. And I love that you called it a beacon of light. I don't know, you might want to name the school that or something. I don't know. What's the name of the school? Have you all decided on the name?
We have not gotten so far as to have a name for the school yet. We do know that Bessie Rose, with its current name will be a school within the school at Fifth Ward School. But
Okay.
the Fifth Ward School will have its own name
Hmm.
as well, and its own registered name with the state. And that's to come, along with determining what programs specifically will be in the building. And that's phase 2 of the staff committee's work. And so we will not stop this conversation. This will be a continued conversation with our community. And so for folks who feel like this has jostled them awake to what we're doing here in District 65, please don't go back to sleep. We need you to continue to be with us. We want to have this conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Anya. Thank you for your time today, and thank you for your role in all of this. Thank you for all of your work and your vision and not getting knocked down, just kept going. So thank you,
And that
lady.
was possible because we were linking arms with so many people who were helping. We were helping to hold each other up. And
Yes,
so I understand that you'll be having some chats with other folks who were linking arms in this fight as
yes, yes.
well. And
Actually, about to hop
yeah,
on in 5 minutes with one of them.
all right,
Yes.
yeah. So
All right,
thank
lady.
you so
Thank you
much
so much,
for
Anya. And you
taking the
know
time.
the door is always open here at Evanston Live TV to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
You too. All right, this is Meleika, Evanston Live TV. That was president of D65, Anya Tanyavutti. And the girl is bad. She is absolutely bad. Absolutely love her. Love her every time she comes on. She's got some good news. I mean, she shares the challenges that she's real about it. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. She tells you exactly what is happening. And she's always in action mode, always in action mode. And as we can see, action speaks louder than words. The woman is bad. Okay. Absolutely love Anya. So you all stay tuned. We have more coming up on Evanston Live TV.